Hey guys, as requested by a lot of people kind of in the thumbnail design space, I'm going to give you a walkthrough of how I make my thumbnails for Overwatch, Marvel Rivals, League of Legends. I'm going to make a series of these videos for different games, different thumbnails. They're all going to be unedited, all raw, just because I don't have the time to edit them, and I think you guys would rather I just get them out. So what I'm going to do is just go through a complete walkthrough, talk through my process. This is aimed at people who kind of have Photoshop experience already, so I don't have to explain where you find things, what you do, more so just explaining my process and how I get my end result. So whatever thumbnail you saw on the thumbnail of this video, that's the thumbnail we're going to make in this video. I don't know what it's going to look like. I don't even know the topic yet. Maybe I should have come up with that. But we will do a Marvel Rivals one for the first one. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to head to Google usually to do my thing. Or for Marvel Rivals, I have this Google Drive, and this is just kind of a collection of assets and resources. I'm currently building my own Photoshop Marvel Rivals kind of collection that will be helpful. So yeah, I like to get started by doing this. And firstly, before we get started, I'm sorry for the echo. I've moved to a new office. There's no furniture, so it's just completely awful. So what we're going to do is, based on the character, I will either go to skins or I will go to the full body renders and kind of choose a character. My number one tip for thumbnail design in any game is it's better to use the default skin because that's what people are most familiar with. And you're trying to reach a wide audience. Maybe you're trying to reach people who don't necessarily play the characters. They might not have seen the character before, especially with new skins. So it's very important, unless you're making like a new skin video, that you just choose what people know. Lose the ego and go with something cool. So I think, who could be a cool character to do? Probably someone I've never done before. I think Wolverine could be a cool, interesting one, kind of yellow theme going on. But I haven't done something for, maybe in a more thumbnail could go cool. Sorry, this is the position I always find myself in when I'm deciding what to do. Let's go for Hela. I think Hela could be quite an interesting character. So what I'm going to do is download the Hela, kind of body render. And as I say, it's better to just do something that people know. But for the sake of it, I'm going to check out the skins, because if there's any cool recolors or anything we can work with, that could be quite interesting. I think for the most part, these are in kind of, the skins are grouped together. So yeah, okay. I think people would recognize all of these as Hela. I think it's just better to play it safe with a default skin on this occasion. So I'm going to go ahead and just drag this into Photoshop. And this will be the base for the entire project. I like to get up close and personal with my characters. I think it's important to get them, their faces really involved. A lot of people will just kind of have their characters like this. I advise not doing that. Get the full body in, get most of the head in. If main stuff is out, like the horns, it's not that big of a deal. Get it nice and big, get her in the thumbnail kind of to be interesting. Now, if it gets a bit pixelated, don't worry about it too much. Like, you're working really closely with this thumbnail in Photoshop, but you've got to think, this is probably as big as it gets on YouTube Home for, desktop. And this is probably as big as people are going to see it on the sidebar. So, people don't need that in-depth stuff. So where to next? Well, I like to go straight into the text usually, but I think it's easier when you're first starting to get a background going. So I'm going to look at the kind of character colors. It's kind of like these kind of, gray, blue, purples for the bodysuit, and then with the green accent. So I'm going to go to Google and search for Marvel Rivals maps and see if I can find something that matches that vibe. If there's any kind of dark blue, purple colors, and then with green accents. And if there isn't anything that I can find, I'm not too mad, because I can always just go with one of the colors and then change the accent schemes. So I think, let's see. I think this fits the vibe, but I'd have to change the magenta to green, and that's kind of a ball ache. But I think, honestly, that's kind of doable. The only problem is it's actually quite low resolution. I think this could be an easy one to do as well. Maybe this one's cool. What's this called? Midtown. So I'm just going to search for a high resolution version of this. See if I can find anything. What's this? Okay, this is a cool high-res version. So what I'm going to do is, because I want it to be green, I don't think people are going to miss the red too much, even though it's like a blood moon type thing. I'll position the background. And just before I start editing the background, I want to quickly buff Hela to get her to where I want it to be for the thumbnail, and that way I can base all of the colors of the thumbnail on the Hela. So I'm going to go to Camera Raw Filter, I'm going to increase the exposure a little bit, but because she has a lot of whites in her kind of like horns, the highlights, and Marvel Rivals has a lot of highlights, I'm going to reduce the highlights, but more importantly, I'm going to reduce the whites to keep things kind of where they need to be. I'll increase the contrast a little bit and the clarity. And based on the character, for texture, she's got a little bit like kind of metal going. So I like to have texture on kind of metal. I think it like makes it pop way more. If I was to kind of show you the before and after, you see like she pops way more. And you can see as well how much reducing the whites does for this to kind of give her that kind of like gloomy effect. That's really cool. I'll increase the vibrancy as well. And then I'm going to increase her overall tint to be more towards green. And what that's going to do is going to reduce some of the bodysuit purples and make her kind of like feel more like cohesive. And the reason I'm doing that is because when I want kind of my text to come involved, I don't want to have to add pink to my text too much to kind of balance the thumbnail out. So instead I'm just going to reduce the kind of pinks on Hela and increase the yellows as well. Just a little bit. Sometimes I like to add grain. I think if I add grain, it almost makes it so that the pixelation kind of makes a little bit more sense. Like as I add grain, it just kind of makes it look more cohesive. And what you can do to combat grain usually as well is you can either reduce the texture, let me see if I can undo that, or alternatively down here there is a section called noise reduction. So what I can do is just turn this up, which gets rid of the grain. It's kind of hard to explain why I do this, but if I add the grain and then I add noise reduction on top of the grain, it kind of reduces the pixelation and just makes it look textured rather than pixelated. Top tip. So I'm gonna press OK, and you can see she's popping way more. What I can do is just press Ctrl Z before and after. You can see she's like popping way more. So what I'm going to do now is I want the background to match Hela. I'm a bit concerned because if I just press Ctrl U or go to hue and saturation, add a filter, and I start messing with this to try and get it to look, say, like to make the moonlit green, it kind of throws off everything else and looks weird. So what I'm going to do to kind of combat this, I'm going to add a new layer above it. I'm going to select one of the deeper greens that I can from Hela, like this. And I'm going to get a soft round brush and start painting around kind of where I want the color to change, which is mainly like the pinks and stuff. And I'm going to make the color mode to be color. And as you can see, when I'm doing this, it's kind of just changing where I want the color to be changed. And honestly, in a lot of these thumbnails, I could just, paint over the entire thing. In fact, I think for this, I'm going to paint the entire right side. And then like this, and just have the tower be like, oh, do I like that? Maybe I'll try the whole thing. Yeah, I think that could be cool. I think it could be cool. So what I'm going to do is just to make it so right now, I'm actually going to move this to be like this. And just because I think it's a little bit too green and it actually doesn't match the Hela green too much, I might try and make it so it's a little bit more this color. Yeah, that matches way better, right? What I'm going to do is I'm going to go to the background and add a camera raw filter to this guy, specifically a vignette. That's like the most important thing. So I'm going to drag it to the darker side, and that's going to make the kind of corners look nice, which is really good for adding depth. But I'm going to add a lot of contrast. I'm going to add a lot of clarity, and I'm going to reduce the texture. I'm also going to reduce the vibrancy, and the reason I'm doing that is to make the green kind of a little bit more like neutral. So when I do that, it kind of makes the sides pop, which gives Hela a lot more kind of like dimension. And the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to quickly add a very subtle Gaussian blur. Nothing too crazy because I still want the details. I still want the Avengers logo in, but enough to where the background is no longer relevant. It's still a map, it's still cool. So next steps, what am I going to do? Well, I need text in this. I think I'm just going to go something default for the time being. So something like rank 1 will be good. Now with text that I do, I like to use a font called Druck Trial. I use it in most of my thumbnails. I always have. I think it's so versatile. It's just good for gaming thumbnails because it's bold. I'm going to choose heavy for this one. And I'm just going to reduce the size of this. So I'll make it say like this big. And then I'm going to duplicate. Oh, I want to move this to the top for now. I'm going to duplicate this and then I want to say the words Hela. Now, I always like to make the subject text, so whatever like the main part is, I like to make it a different color, but usually a different font as well. Now, I've just got, this is a new computer, so I don't have any cool fonts really. So I think an interesting idea could be is to maybe look for a new font. I actually did just install this one for a Doctor Strange one. and I think it's too vertical. But I still think it fits the kind of vibes. Yeah, maybe I'll do this one. Maybe I'll do this one and just shrink it a little bit. Why not? And that's the other thing that I would kind of really, stress that you guys explore is like, don't necessarily follow the rules, just do whatever the hell you want. It doesn't really matter. Changing font sizes, adjusting backgrounds, just make things look cool. Make things look cool. That's the whole point of a thumbnail. You want people to click on it. And you probably think, wow, that looks shit, it's blending in. So I'm going to show you how I do the text, which I would say is the most important part of my thumbnails, the thing that kind of gets them the most attention. So I have loads of layer styles that I use. Obviously, new PC, I'm building it up still. But this is a prime example of one that I use. Say, like, this one's a cool one, this one's a cool one. Literally all it is an inner glow, which you can copy the settings here, with a gradient overlay. This is a default cloud one, I think, from like either cloud or grays or something. And then a drop shadow, and a very subtle drop shadow. And that's just to set it off from the background we're going to add. So I'm going to add this one to the top one, the bottom one, I think it was this one, right? The second one, yeah, cool. And then this one. Except for the middle one, we want to do a little bit more adjusting and make it a little bit more kind of like personal to the thumbnail. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to change the gradient first of all, but I'm going to change the gradient by color picking from Hela. So let's go with like, maybe doing it from this part would be cool. And then I want to go to, in fact, actually, because we changed the background to be recording, I'll just color pick from the background to make it easier to match. So like, yeah, that could be kind of cool. I feel like the inner glow is a little bit too much, so I'm going to just decrease it like this, and then just decrease the opacity. Okay, that'll do. I don't want to spend too long doing it. So what I'm going to do now is select all three. I'm going to duplicate them with Control J, and on the bottom three that I just duplicated the originals, I'm just going to turn the effects off, convert to smart object, and then I'm going to add a drop shadow. I'm going to make the opacity 100%, I'm going to make the spread 100%, distance 0, and the size is going to be, changed. I change this a lot. Each thumbnail is different based on how much space I want to fill or how I feel. So for this one, I want to add an extra outline on top of this outline. So what I'm going to do is make it kind of big like this, and then I'm going to convert it to a smart object. I'm going to color, I'm going to make sure I have a black brush selected, and I'm going to rasterize it, which basically means I can now paint on it with a brush. And so I'm going to select a hard round brush, and I'm going to just color it in. So I'm going to color in the gaps like this. And anywhere that looks weird, I kind of want to correct. So for example, this kind of weird like crevice on the side doesn't fit right. So I'm gonna click here, hold shift and click like on a diagonal like this. And I think that kind of fits better. And so to match it, I'm gonna do the same thing on the other side. So I'm gonna click here, like this, and match it on the diagonal. I think that looks cool. And just for the sake of symmetry, I'll do the same on the top. So I'll click here, and click here, and click here. Now, it's probably better to do it differently because now these angles don't match up. But for the sake of this thumbnail, I'm not too bothered. Actually, it's bothering me, so I'm gonna undo it. It's the problem with being a designer. I'm gonna make this more subtle, so I'll say click like here, and then just down here like that. And that'll do. And then I'll just do the same kind of style here. Boom. Cool. What I'm going to do now is I'm going to convert smart object, and I'm going to add a layer style, which for this one, it's literally just a black and gray layer style. It's not that difficult. In fact, I'm even going to make this more dark because it's like a Hela kind of creepy vibes one. Cool, right? That's literally all it is. It's nothing else. So I'm going to press OK. And then I want to add more to this. So what I'm going to do is convert smart object, duplicate, and on the bottom one, I'm going to add another drop shadow and do the same thing we just did. And I'll just make it red because it's easier to see. What I'm going to do is 0, 100, and then I'm going to choose the size. So I think I want quite a thin one this time. It's because I'll multiply, is it? I think a thin one could be really cool for this one. So I'm going to press OK. I'm going to convert smart object. I know you guys are going to come at me because it's destructive editing and I can't go back and change it. I don't give a shit. I make so many thumbnails that I just churn them out as fast as I can. So what I'm going to do with this one is double click, add a gradient, and I'm going to color pick the exact same colors. So I'll just go to the dark one, color pick that, and then the light one, and color pick that, like that. But what I want to do is I want to make it so, first I will make it linear, and then I want to have a light source. So for example, all the text has light at the top and dark at the bottom. So I'll do the same thing. I'll just make it so it's light and dark, and I'll change the scale to be like that. Cool, but it's kind of getting drowned out a little bit. You can't really see it at the bottom of the thing. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to select everything, group it up, duplicate it, hide the group so I kind of have something to edit if I need to, and then we convert this to smart object and add a drop shadow. I'm not going to add a red drop shadow. I'm just going to reset the default and add kind of like a standard drop shadow, nothing too crazy, just to keep it so it can stand out. Maybe I'm going to actually increase the opacity and just decrease the size of this one. Cool. Now, next step is I like to kind of frame the text. I think it's quite important to do that. So I will do that using a perspective warp. So edit perspective warp. And then I kind of just want to get it as close to the right size as I can. Like this is kind of good. Maybe I should extend on the side. Press warp in the top left. And then I'm going to kind of position this. Now, the two things I either do is I either make it kind of like this, where the right side becomes really big and it kind of like goes into the center, shrinks into the center. And the reason I tend to do that is because then you have a focal point of the center. However, what I want to happen in this thumbnail is I want people to start at Hela on the left and then read downwards, so the eyes are drawn down along the spikes and into the text. So what I'll do for that is I'll kind of bring it down more kind of like this. Yeah, I think that's cool. Cool. Okay, so now what I want to do though is I want to increase the size. The best thing to do is just honestly expand, make it a smart object again, so you don't have to like deal with this weirdness when you're editing. But what I'm going to do now is move Hela above the text, and that's just going to add a bit. Actually, not on this occasion. I change it up. The most important thing in my thumbnails is adding dimension. How can we kind of add more assets to make things more interesting? I might even make Hela bigger just so that she kind of like fits in a little bit more. Now, once again, I'm still feeling a little bit like the green isn't matching too much. So in this case, I'm just going to select this and just maybe make it a little bit more on the cyan side, like this. I think that's more matching Hela, and then even the background, let's kind of move that over a little bit more. Yeah, I think that matches way better. Okay, cool. Now, how do I add more stuff to this to kind of make it interesting? Well, the first thing I like to do is add smoke or like clouds. So I'm just going to search up smoke background in Google, see if you can find anything. Anything with a black background, by the way, that's what we're looking for here. So this could be kind of interesting. It's actually really low resolution though. Okay, that's cool. We'll do this one. Why not? Or actually, yeah, okay, fine, fine, we can use this. And what I'm going to do is just paste it above the color layer and just kind of make it super big like this, maybe just so it fits in the corner. I'm going to press Ctrl U to add hue and saturation and press colorize on the right. And I'm going to make it kind of like that bluey green. It's more saturation, maybe decrease the darkness, like this. Then I'm going to add a lighten to it. Which is gonna, or like a screen probably, and that's gonna remove the blacks that we the black background. It kind of reduces, and then the kind of blacks in the center, it reduces that as well. So I'll add that, and that kind of adds some cool depth to the side. And because I feel like I still want it to be a little bit darker at the bottom, I'll add a black paintbrush stroke underneath, making sure it's on soft round. So what I'll do is just add like that. But what I'll do is then I'll just reduce the opacity of this a little bit so the background shows through still. I think that's kind of cool. So what else can we do to add texture? Great question. Well, I like to add borders by adding something from here and kind of blurring it. So what I'm going to do is duplicate Hela. I'm going to bring it to the top, and I'm going to make her really big for a second here. So I'm going to just make it huge, because I think her spikes for her head could be a really interesting border. So I'm going to make it even bigger. like this. And I think that could be kind of cool. And you probably think it's going to be so pixelated, she's huge, what the hell, what are you doing? Yeah, I mean, I know, but I'm going to add Gaussian blur and effects and make it look cool. It's just taking ages. Just wait for this to go ahead. But yeah, this is just kind of adding depth and dimension. This is like the most important thing to thumbnail design a lot of people don't implement. And I think that's where a lot of people kind of like have, kind of issues. With kind of like, yeah, basically making that thumbnail like super interesting. So what I'm going to do is like zoom in. First thing I'm going to do is I want to remove, I'm actually just going to convert to a smart object. And the reason I'm converting to a smart object is because that's going to clip everything outside. So now it's just this rather than the huge Hela. I'm just going to quickly remove this part up to here, because part of depth is having things come underneath and things going behind some objects to look like it's kind of like, wrapped around, I guess. So by doing this, we can just really make it wrap around, I guess. So I'm actually just going to go really precise with this because it looks like you can recognize it from far, especially when there's an outline on something that we've made. What I'm going to do is go to Filter, Blur, Gaussian Blur, and just really blur this out, like this. And I want to reintroduce some depth and dimension. So what I'm going to do, first of all, just to save myself doing camera raw, I'll darken it like this, and increase the kind of saturation. But then I want to add like, make it stand out, make it really pop, even though it's blurred. So what I can do is add clarity and texture, and then I'll add grain to it, like this. Probably even more vibrancy, get it to kind of stand out, look interesting. Increase the depth of the colors like this. Okay, cool. And then it kind of stands out more, kind of looks interesting. And I'll duplicate this, flip it, and flip it again vertically, and do the same thing on the other side. And that kind of creates like an interesting, an interesting bit of texture for the thumbnail. So I'm going to reposition this, basically make it, I think we can make this even bigger for this this thumbnail. And I think Hela can come over a little bit more like this. Okay, cool. So what I can also do now is I like to add some stuff above the text, or make this smaller, and say add 1 and 2 lines like that, and then I'll just add a linear dodge, and then just decrease the size, just that it kind of like stands out. That could be kind of interesting. And I actually want to change these to make it a little bit more in line with the background. Oh, actually, we can make it like more. Actually, we'll keep it like that. What I want to do now is I'm going to select the text, and I want to add a new layer above with these kind of pinks that Hela seems to have, and I'm going to just add them as highlights like this along the kind of the sides of the text. I'm just going to move this out of the way so I can do the same thing here on the bottom. And then what I can do is just add a kind of soft light or a hard light to get that kind of like purple vibe going. So I'll deselect that, and then I can just decrease the opacity. So it kind of has that like same, and I'll even move it below that. And so it kind of has that same bleed from Hela onto the thing. I'm also going to add a drop shadow to Hela because she's looking a bit washed out right now. So I want to make her a little bit more, stand out a little bit more, so what we'll do is like, okay, cool. That could be interesting. What am I thinking? I think maybe we can add a drop shadow to these guys as well, or just the one on the right. Oh. And then I'll just go with a brush and just paint over where it's like doing a little bit too much. I actually need a soft round brush for this. So it's doing a little bit too much, like on the text, I can just remove that. And like on the top as well. I actually want to add a grain to this thing that I just added. I think it could be cool. So I'm going to filter, noise, add noise. And then if I just kind of go to Gaussian and then kind of increase the noise by a little bit, that could be interesting. Okay, anything else that I want to add? I think it's looking pretty cool right now. The other thing I can kind of do is add, like, see, ranked logos. That's generally like a cool thing you can add. And the last thing that I want to add for depth is a vignette. Now, I'm just gonna go to say like another thumbnail I've made, say like this George Saliba one. I'm gonna click on this one, and I'm just gonna copy dark widescreen. I literally just do this for all my thumbnails. Now this has taken me how long? It's taken me 25 minutes to make this. But if I was making it off recording, it would literally take me 10 minutes. And the reason why is because I just go through all of my old files and I pick stuff that I want. So for example, I'd like click on this last thumbnail I made and I reused loads of my stuff. So I'd click on this and be like, do I need anything from this? Well, I could have used the smoke that I already used. So when I've found that on Google and it's already like pre-textured, I could think like, say for example, there's lightning at the back. I'd be like, yeah, that's cool. Let me add that. So I'll go behind the text and add this lightning, which I believe this lightning is from Sesso's Everything pack. I'm not sure though, I'd have to check. And I'll select this and I'll go and I'll be like, this could be interesting in this color, bam. And you know, that's literally what I'm doing. I want this to be behind Hela, so I'll like pop that out and I'll be like, should we try it with a ranked logo maybe? So let's copy the rank thing, and I'm like, does this work out? And if it doesn't, we can just remove it. I think this could be cool. So I'm placing things behind and in front. I think because of the colors for this, I want to go to blur and make it a little bit more kind of Gaussian blurred a little bit, just so it doesn't blend in too much. And I'll duplicate it and think there's a space over here, so I can flip this and like duplicate this over here and maybe put this one like down here. So it's just like behind Hela. Boom, I think that could be interesting. And then maybe one more and we'll do it kind of like hidden away behind her. So there's like way more dimension. And that's kind of how I build up my thumbnails really. And if I'm thinking I'm not too happy with how this looks, well, I do have somewhere like a color correction pack, which what I can do then is, let me see if it's on my computer. I actually don't have it on my PC right now, but what I can do is just add color correction and change the whole vibe basically. And the whole appeal. So yeah, that's how I've made this thumbnail. It's the complete process. I'll make some more videos like this. Everything I just did in the last bit, you know, like, oh, where did he get the assets from, the textures? Everything's from Google or the Google Drive. I'll link in the description. You know, it's just a collection of assets I found over the years. The fonts are all Google fonts or, you know, anywhere that I can find. So yeah, that's just kind of a bit of an example of how I made this thumbnail. So you can go ahead and get making your own. So yeah, thanks for watching.